Every city has its secrets, whispered in the quiet hours after midnight. Picture a street, bathed in the artificial glow of lampposts. They cast long, golden pools on the pavement, but between each circle of safety, the shadows gather. They are thick, uncertain, and in the right light, they almost seem to be alive. It is here, in these pockets of urban twilight, that a legend was born. Locals call it the shadow between streetlights, a story shared between late-night commuters, taxi drivers, and all the forgotten workers of the night shift. They are the ones who claim to have seen something, or someone, lurking just beyond the edges of the light. The tale traces its origins to the late 1970s, a time when the city wrestled with rolling blackouts and a palpable sense of unease. Streetlights would flicker, sputter, and die, plunging entire blocks into an unnerving darkness. It was then that the first reports began to surface. People walking home alone spoke of a chilling sensation as they passed from one island of light to the next. Some felt the weight of unseen eyes upon them. Others heard footsteps that perfectly matched their own, echoing just a single beat behind. But a handful of them claimed to witness something far stranger, a fleeting glimpse of a tall, indistinct figure that seemed to recoil from the light, only to grow bolder and larger in the darkness. One of the earliest, most resonant accounts comes from a bus driver named Gloria Rivera. In 1981, Gloria was finishing her final route near midnight. The street ahead was empty, except for a tall, shadowy silhouette she saw dart between two lampposts. She would later describe it as being darker than the darkness itself, moving with an unnatural, disjointed gait. As the beams of her headlights swept across the spot, the figure was simply gone, as if it had been erased by the light.
Gloria's story spread like a contagion through the neighborhood, birthing countless variations, but the core of the tale remained unchanged. The figure was always seen in the space between the lights, and it was never, ever fully revealed. City records from that era show a curious spike in calls to police, reporting prowlers and unusual shadows in poorly lit areas. Most were dismissed as frayed nerves, the product of an overactive imagination, but the sheer volume of these reports eventually caught the attention of local journalists and folklorists. They began to collect the stories, weaving them together and noting the common threads. The shadow was always silent, it always avoided direct light, and it never, ever left a trace. Over the years, the legend adapted, evolving with the city itself. As old, humming sodium lamps were replaced with stark, efficient LED lights, the sightings grew less frequent, but they never vanished completely. Social media gave the story a modern pulse. Users began sharing grainy photos and shaky videos, claiming to have captured a flicker of movement in the gaps between the brilliant new lights. For some, the shadow became a harbinger, a warning of danger ahead. For others, it was a physical manifestation of urban anxiety, a collective fear given form by the city's sleepless, watchful nights. To this day, the shadow between streetlights remains a fixture of local lore. It is a quiet reminder that even in the illuminated heart of a metropolis, mystery clings to the darkness, and every patch of shadow might be hiding more than we can possibly see. But not all shadows lurk in alleyways. Some hide in plain sight, within the pages of our history books, taking the form of stories we've always believed to be true. We are, at our core, a species of storytellers. We crave explanations for who we are and where we came from.
Yet sometimes the seeds of our collective past are sown not in the soil of fact, but in the fertile ground of myth, wishful thinking, or even deliberate invention. Consider the simple, powerful tale of a young George Washington and a cherry tree. As the legend goes, a 6-year-old George, after damaging his father's prize tree with a new hatchet, was confronted. Instead of lying, he bravely confessed, "I cannot tell a lie, I did cut it." This story, first published by Mason Locke Weems in 1806, was designed to illustrate Washington's unshakable honesty. The only problem? There is no evidence it ever happened. Weems, a biographer with a flair for the dramatic, invented the narrative years after Washington's death. He crafted it to inspire the youth of a new nation, to cement its first president as an unimpeachable moral icon. And despite its fictional roots, the story of the cherry tree endures, shaping how generations perceive the character of a founding father. These imaginary origins are not just for individuals. Entire nations are built upon them. Think of Rome's legendary beginnings. Ancient lore tells us the city was founded by twin brothers, Romulus and Remus, who were abandoned as infants and miraculously suckled by a she-wolf. Archaeological evidence paints a far more complex and gradual picture of Rome's birth, showing it grew from a cluster of small settlements over centuries. And yet, the image of the wolf mother remains the eternal symbol of Roman identity, stamped on coins, carved into statues, and carried as an emblem for millennia. It is a truth more powerful than fact. Of course, these invented origins are not always so benign. In the 19th century, as nations across Europe sought to forge powerful identities, they constructed grand myths of ancestral purity and heroic founders. These stories often conveniently erased uncomfortable truths about conquest, migration, and diversity.
The British Isles, for example, spun tales of pure Anglo-Saxon or Celtic races, ignoring a long and complex history of multicultural influence. These myths were not just stories. They shaped literature, art, and even colonial policy, creating national narratives that still echo today. So why do we cling to them? Why do these imaginary seeds continue to bear fruit in our modern world? In part, it is because they fill the frustrating gaps in the historical record. Where evidence is scarce, imagination rushes in. But more importantly, these stories give us a powerful sense of belonging. They provide heroes to admire, shared struggles to overcome, and the comforting feeling that our place in the world is part of a grand, meaningful design. The next time you hear a story about where a nation, a people, or even a family truly came from, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, was this seed planted by history or by the careful hand of imagination? This need for a hidden, deeper story extends beyond our history and into the worlds we create for entertainment. There is a unique thrill in encountering a character who may or may not actually exist. They are the faces in the crowd, the rumored, the whispered about, figures who seem more like ghosts in the machine than solid creations. In video games, novels, and films, the idea of secret characters lurking just out of sight has captivated us for generations. Let's enter the glowing world of the video arcade, where rumors of hidden characters have become legends in their own right. Perhaps the most famous is the supposed existence of Shang Long in the classic fighting game Street Fighter II. In the early 1990s, a clumsy mistranslation of a victory line from the character Ryu, "You must defeat Shang Long to stand a chance," sparked a global firestorm of speculation.
Players in arcades across the world spent countless hours and quarters trying every conceivable combination of moves, convinced that Shang Long was a secret, unlockable boss. Gaming magazines fueled the frenzy, publishing elaborate and entirely fake instructions on how to find him. It wasn't until years later that the game's developer, Capcom, finally admitted it was all a misunderstanding. But the legend was so powerful, they eventually paid tribute to it by introducing a real character based on the myth. Similarly, the Pokémon franchise became a breeding ground for one of gaming's most persistent rumors, the elusive Pokégods. On playgrounds and in the early days of online forums, children swapped incredible stories of secret creatures that could only be unlocked by performing bizarre and difficult tasks. They said you had to beat the Elite Four 100 times or use a specific move on a specific rock. At the center of it all was Mew, a Pokémon that actually did exist but was nearly impossible to obtain, lending credibility to all the other wilder claims. Names like Peekaboo and Doomsday were passed around in hushed tones, none of them real, but all of them adding to the magical sense of a world teeming with undiscovered secrets. This phenomenon isn't limited to games. Literature and film have their own phantoms.
For decades, devoted fans of Sherlock Holmes insisted that there must be a lost manuscript, a hidden case file, that featured the mysterious Sharon Ford Holmes, Sherlock's supposed older brother. Though never mentioned in Arthur Conan Doyle's original work, the myth of Sharon Ford has persisted, inspiring countless news stories and fan theories. In the original Star Wars trilogy, eagle-eyed viewers claimed to spot a mysterious female Pink 5 rebel pilot during the Death Star assault, or a shadow stormtrooper lurking in a background corridor.
None of these characters were ever officially confirmed, yet their supposed sightings fueled endless debate. These rumored characters captivate us because they suggest that the worlds we love are bigger and more mysterious than they appear. They blur the line between the story and our reality, inviting us to look a little closer, to search a little harder. Whether they are ever proven to be real or not, their very existence as a rumor becomes a vital part of the mythology, keeping fans searching, speculating, and above all, believing. But a story is only as powerful as its telling. A legend, no matter how compelling, doesn't simply remain trapped at its point of origin. It travels. It spreads like a seed on the wind, carried by whispers, taking on a life of its own far beyond the place where it was born. The transmission of a legend is a fascinating, organic process. In the beginning, these stories were passed orally, vivid, thrilling tales recounted around a campfire or during the endless dark of a winter's night. Each storyteller would add their own personal touch, embellishing a detail here, shifting an event there, all to better hold their audience's attention. This meant that while the core of a legend remained intact, subtle changes would creep in with every retelling. A story about a mysterious creature in the woods might change its appearance or its habits to better reflect the local landscape or the specific fears of the community telling it. The legend's journey didn't end there. With the invention of the printing press and later mass media, these stories found powerful new ways to travel. Newspapers in the 19th and early 20th centuries often reported on strange happenings and unexplained phenomena, blurring the line between fact and folklore. These printed accounts gave a legend a new kind of authority, allowing it to leap from one town to the next and eventually across entire countries.
Lurid headlines and dramatic illustrations added fuel to the fire, capturing the imaginations of readers who had never set foot anywhere near the story's original setting. Modern technology accelerated this process exponentially. Radio broadcasts in the early 20th century brought chilling tales directly into people's homes. Television dramatizations in the 1950s and 60s gave these legends a terrifying visual form. And today, the internet allows a story to cross continents in an instant. Online forums, social media, and dedicated websites have become the new digital campfires, where people can share personal encounters, reinterpretations, and evidence, creating thriving communities of believers and skeptics. A legend is no longer just a story to be heard. It is a shared experience, constantly being reshaped and reinforced by every person who engages with it. Its power lies in its ability to adapt and endure. As it drifts from person to person, town to town, and screen to screen, it becomes a mirror, reflecting our hopes, our fears, and our universal fascination with the unknown. And sometimes, these stories aren't spoken at all. They're written into the very fabric of our world, in a silent, secret language that surrounds us every day. Every city speaks. It speaks through signs, symbols, and markings woven into the urban landscape. This language guides us, warns us, and informs our every move, often without us ever consciously realizing it. Consider the humble stop sign, a simple red octagon, a shape and color that transcends language and culture. This is no accident. The color red signals urgency, demanding our attention. The octagonal shape is unique among road signs, making it instantly recognizable even at a distance, or if the letters are obscured by snow. This is designed with a purpose, to ensure that every driver, whether a local or a visitor, understands its universal command at a single glance. But the city's symbols go far beyond traffic control. Think of the bold parallel white lines of a crosswalk. They create a protected channel for pedestrians, a zone of safety. In many places, these are called zebra crossings, and their high-contrast design is engineered to catch the eye of drivers, especially in the dim light of dawn or dusk. Look up at the street signs. Their colors and fonts are not random. In the United States, green signs with white lettering denote street names. Blue signs point the way to essential services like hospitals. Yellow diamonds warn us to proceed with caution, alerting us to a sharp curve or a school crossing. These visual cues become second nature, a silent grammar that helps us navigate our complex environments with an almost instinctual ease. These symbols convey vast amounts of information when words are too slow or too complicated. A red circle with a diagonal slash through it is a universal no. No parking, no entry, no smoking. A simple icon of a figure in a wheelchair instantly signals accessibility. These pictograms effortlessly cross language barriers, making our shared spaces navigable for people from all over the world. Even the unofficial markings are part of the secret language. Utility companies spray cryptic codes on sidewalks to map the hidden network of cables and pipes beneath our feet. In subways, colored tiles or arrows on the floor guide millions of commuters toward their destination. Decoding these signs reveals a city's priorities, its culture, and its hidden stories. They are the quiet instructions, warnings, and welcomes embedded in our world, a language that is everywhere if you only know how to look. This brings us to the ultimate mystery. We've explored the stories we tell about the world, but what about the stories we tell ourselves? Have you ever been absolutely certain of a memory, only to discover, with a shock, that it never happened? Perhaps you recall a specific conversation from your childhood that your sibling swears never took place. Or you're convinced a famous line from a movie was spoken one way, when the reality is something else entirely. This isn't just a simple mistake. This is the strange and fascinating world of false memories, a phenomenon that reveals just how malleable our own minds can be. So, why do these echoes of things that never happened feel so intensely real? The answer lies in the way our brains store and retrieve information. A memory is not a perfect video recording, played back with flawless accuracy. Instead, every time we recall an event, we are actively reconstructing it, piecing together fragments of sensory data, emotions, and even suggestions we've picked up from others. This process of reconstruction is incredibly powerful, but it is also deeply vulnerable to error. This is the root of what's known as the Mandela effect, named for the widespread but incorrect collective memory of Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s. Or consider the Berenstain Bears. Millions of people distinctly remember the popular children's books being spelled Berenstain with an E, but it has always been Berenstain with an A. How can so many different people be wrong in the exact same way? Psychologists suggest our brains use mental templates or schemas built from past experiences. Because names ending in Stein are more common, our brains may unconsciously correct the name to fit the familiar pattern. Social influence also plays a powerful role. When we hear others confidently recall an event, our own uncertain memories can begin to conform to their version. Over time, as we are repeatedly exposed to the incorrect information, we can forget its original source. The false memory simply becomes our own. Emotion is another key ingredient.
Memories tied to strong feelings are more likely to be vivid and lasting, but they are also more prone to distortion, as our minds prioritize the emotional impact over the factual details. In controlled studies, researchers have even successfully implanted false memories, convincing people they vividly remember meeting Bugs Bunny at Disneyland, a physical impossibility, as Bugs is a Warner Brothers character. The participants later described the impossible encounter with genuine confidence and detail. In the end, we believe in what never happened, because our minds are not built to be perfect recording devices. They are built to be storytellers. They create meaning and coherence, filling in the gaps and smoothing over the rough edges of reality. These echoes of the past, these shadows in our own minds, are a testament to the incredible and imperfect power of human memory. They are the final urban legend, the one that lives inside each of us.